I wanted to come on before this video starts and just, recognize what is happening in the world right now with protests and everything. It's very important that we don't gloss over it, recognize it for what it is, and continue the fight. I've linked below some resources and also a list of petitions that haven't reached our goals yet. It's very important that we keep on and not let the momentum fall. And I know I only have like 20 subscribers. Thank you for being here. It's so nice. But just, 20 more people is a huge step. So please do whatever you can. It only takes like 2 minutes to sign up to any petition, and it does help. The petitions do help. There are reforms happening right now because of the sheer amount of signatures that petitions have gotten. It is a way for you to help and for me to help. Keep up the good fight. Don't let it burn out. My bookshelves mean so much to me. They are both an expression of who I am, who I want to be, the books that I want to read, the stories I want to indulge in, but also the stories that mean a lot to me. These books are mostly the books that I haven't read, the books that I'm most excited about reading or rereading, or the books that are very close and dear to my heart. I've always wanted a huge collection of books. I've been collecting them for a while. That's like what I spend most money on. It's something that I choose to spend so much time on. I think it's a shame if I don't take care of it. I guess we come back to the name of this channel and also my Instagram, plug, my Bookstagram, where I post all the books that I'm reading. It's so nice to sort of have something to look back on in a few years and going, oh, that's right, I hadn't read that book, or that's weird that I would put those books together, or it's so weird that I kept that book when I now have no interest in it, Alright, so this video is gonna be kind of very long. I think you should do as I am doing. Make yourself some coffee or some tea, get some snacks, and let's just enjoy each other's company for a while. Okay. This is sort of the designated notebook shelf. It's right by my little desk here. This is the exciting thing. This is my reading journal, my dudes. It's a little bit of a collage in front. It's very nice. This is a Muji notebook. It has dots and like a spiral spine. I also have a little quote right here. It says, "Wild things happen in stillness," which I thought was very, very, very fitting. I got stuff in here like a lot of, lists of books that I want to read. We also got some reading routine things. Got some readathon things here. Also got some, book reviews. Let's move on. So this is the shelf that I am immediately reaching for. So it's like my TBR shelf. We start off with Sophie's World by Jostein Gaarder, a Norwegian author, written like a children's book about philosophy. Also have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Long, difficult name. We know why. It's a plague book. Let's read it. I also did lie though. It's not the next book. My next book was Night Film by Marisha Pessel. Watch out for that review. It'll be a juicy one. We have Outline by Rachel Kusk. I'm excited to read something that isn't this like male narrative of, I just need some time in my late 20s to find myself and I don't know what's gonna happen and I'm so tired of these white dudes, aren't you? Yeah. And I've heard that her books are very much like the female version of that. Anyway, conversations with friends. I love normal people. I want to read her books too. we have Anne Frank, Diary of a Young Girl. I bought this at the Jewish Memorial Museum in Berlin. I feel like the conversation sort of goes quiet whenever you talk about her, because it's like such dark, shameful part of, you know, Western history. Next book is Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. You know, it's about the atom bomb and if we sort of doomed ourselves by creating the atom bomb. I need to reread this book for school. We also have The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. It's about the Underground Railroad during slavery in the States. We also have Emma, I have been talking about this one. And we also have Fathers and Sons, I have been talking about that one. Let's move on. This is the next part of the shelf. That's a hair. I don't read a lot of classics. I'm trying to get more into them, but it's difficult. I've read Little Women. I've read, well, these two by Jules Verne. I've also read Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. These are my... hold on. These are my favorite editions. This is not Jane Austen. It's Virginia Woolf, but these like small ones here, beautiful. I also have A Clockwork Orange and Lolita right here. These are my favorite. Oh my god! Like editions of modern classics. It's the Penguin modern classics. It's the same as Diary of a Young Girl. You know, they look very sleek. I'm really excited for reading Lolita. I watched Philosophy Tube's video on Nabokov's works, and now I really want to read Ada as well. I also have this beautiful edition of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte that I also haven't read. It's like very nice and fluffy, and it's the Penguin English Library. I love these. These are also one of my favorite editions. I of course also have Little Women in Puffin and Bloom. I have American Psycho that I also haven't read. We also have To Kill a Mockingbird. I bought this in Germany. I also have secondhand editions of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House and also Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I haven't read any of them. Hopefully soon. And then we also have 1984 by George Orwell. It's like super 90s edition. It's my dad's, I think. We also have Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. The same is about The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. We have Anne of Green Gables right here. And then we also have The Alchemist, which I have recently read. We also have my favorite story of all time, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Also my favorite edition of all time. Look how beautiful that is. Gorgeous! That's a story I can reread and reread and reread. And then I just have some samples of like Circe and the Cyclops, some Homer, you know, and we have some Ian Forster. And that's that shelf. This is like a corner shelf. Mostly contemporary, mostly read. So we have Turtles All the Way Down, a book that I recently read, by John Green. And I loved it so much. Like I did honestly love it so much. It's one of those reader experiences that you just remember because like there's no stop. It's one of those like you just think about the book, you breathe the book, you have no sense of getting filled up while you're reading it. It's just like a devouring kind of sense. I think John Green does a phenomenal job of writing books like that. Okay, so that's Turtles All the Way Down. We also have Hollywood by Charles Bukowski. I have a lot of thoughts around Charles Bukowski because I also read Run with the Hunted. Run with the Hunted is kind of confusing and difficult to explain because it's sort of like a biography, but through his works and through the way he writes about, you know, periods of his life. I realized like halfway through reading Run with the Hunted that I don't like this man at all. This man is very much like, so much shit has happened to me in my life and I deserve to be an asshole and I'm the only one in this world that actually realizes what this world is. And it was so pitiful. Just feel so sorry for himself. And like, he has gone through not very fun things, and I get it, like, but have some perspective. It's basically about when he wrote a script for a movie and sort of how that, you know, came to be. I read this in like 2 days, I think. Not because it was especially good, but because he writes quite simple and very like straightforward. I also have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I've already been speaking about this book in my isolation reads. I'll link it. Books that I read during March and April. Amazing, so good. Yeah, I liked it so much. I haven't been reading YA nearly as much as I nearly as much as I used to. We have Timequake by Kurt Vonnegut. This is a book that I need to reread because first time I read it, I sort of didn't really understand what was happening because it's a lot of like jumping around and a lot of like you following different people and different timelines. Everyone in the world goes back 10 years, but not like goes back in time. No, goes back in time, but knowing what's gonna happen. So you have to relive the 10 years between 1991 and 2001. Yeah, I think Kurt Vonnegut is absolutely brilliant. I think Kurt Vonnegut is everything that Charles Bukowski tries to be. We also have a book that I bought on a whim. 4 people casually meeting, coming from different backgrounds during the war, having fled. And they're friends. They meet and they become friends and they need to survive. Let's move! So this is the next shelf, mostly dedicated, well, only dedicated to these 2 bricks of books. First one is H.P. Lovecraft's complete fiction, so a lot of his short stories. I don't know if it has his novels, but we'll see when I finally read it. So H.P. Lovecraft is very well established in the sci-fi scene. I got this from my friend when he heard that I hadn't read anything of H.P. Lovecraft's. And then I also have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I am looking forward to it, but I also feel like I need to be at a very specific place in my life to be able to indulge. Yep. That's it. Let's move on. We have Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. I have never read this. I will read it probably at some point because I love a good mystery. Love that for us. I also got Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly. This is about the black women who actually were behind. Yeah, it's about the black women behind like the biggest space exploration projects. You know, the human computers. More Than This by Patrick Ness. It's about a boy that dies and then he doesn't die, really. We also have Secret History. You know, we know about this. We've been new. That is also in my wrap-up. In this huge heap here, we have a lot of, like, the really big chunks. All of them adult. All contemporary adult fiction. We have Magnet by Lars Saabye Christensen, another Norwegian author. This is about 2 struggling artists moving from Norway to San Francisco, I think. We also have The Goldfinch by Don Tartt. I want to read it. I want to see if I like it better or worse than The Secret History. We also have Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. We have My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. We have I don't know if this has been translated yet. It is by Helga Flatland, so a Norwegian author. Again, it's 3 in 1. It's called Bli hvis du kan, reis hvis du må. And it's about this friend group. The first book is about the 4 of them growing up and leaving for Afghanistan. The second and third book is about the aftermath. We also have 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami, both books, so both in one. I honestly quite like Haruki Murakami, but I don't know why. Because honestly, sometimes he's so problematic in the way he writes. Sometimes he reminds me a lot of Stephen King, if you know what I mean. Like a lot of like the same characters over and over and over again. The same like male narrative. Like I need to find myself, and through that I need to sleep with a lot of women, and oh, I'm gonna... Whoopsie. We also have Trekk opp fuglen, but it's also by Haruki Murakami. The top here is a short story collection. It's a handbook for cleaning ladies. And I'm saying that with a question mark because I don't know if I'm translating it correctly. Move on? Shall we? Yes. Yeah, it's 3 days later. You know, life happens. Sometimes things don't work out the first time, and that's okay. But yeah, we're halfway through. Yes, we are. We are now here at this shelf. I don't know if you've noticed, but I pulled out some books because those are books that don't belong here right now. See if there's a haul later. Anyway. So this is my sci-fi, thriller, mystery, horror, except for this book. This book belongs somewhere here, but right now I can't fit it anywhere. Anyway, this is, just to mention it, this is the book by Seshan Shakar. The book is Tante Ulrikes Vei. It's Norwegian. It's about these 2 boys living on the east side, which is like the immigrant less well off than the west side of Oslo. And it's about those 2 living in different kinds of families, both immigrant families, but yeah, and sort of how the difference and if there is a difference and yeah, stuff like that. It was really good. I've read it. So this is Dean Koontz' 77 Shadow Street. It says, "Are you brave enough to enter?" which I find kind of cheesy. This is a horror novel about a house that apparently has had a lot of tragedies. Madness, suicide, mass murder. Woo! The next one is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. We all know about this book. It's kind of cool, actually. It's multimedia, so it has a lot of like shit like this. Some transcribed things, some, you know, messages. And it's all about a spaceship in space, traveling to somewhere, and then suddenly a plague breaks out, and it's about isolating people. It's about isolating people and trying to figure out sort of where it comes from and surviving on this spaceship without dying, basically. The next one is World War Z by Max Brooks. We all know what I think of this book. The next one is Agatha Christie's, it's Agatha Christie. I've read about 1 novel of her. It's in the Miss Maple world. This one is, God's Left Hand by Paul Hoffman. We also have Stephen King's The Shining, which is the only Stephen King book that I've actually liked. I am very scared of rereading it though, just in case it's not as good as I thought it was. Some of the problems that have risen since me reading Stephen King, they were not present reading this book, because a lot of my problems with him is just like reoccurring traits in his male protagonists and reoccurring themes and reoccurring like statements and views on things. We also have I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. A classic sci-fi, probably about robots. We also have the last 2 books here, which are the Gillian Flynn books, Gone Girl and Dark Places. Gillian Flynn is my favorite thriller author. She's so good, and she's so incredibly good at writing female characters and complex, weird, horrible, like, people. I've read all of the books that she's come out with so far, even the small, like, novella that she had. The next book we have is Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I've heard it is extremely sad and traumatic if you have experienced stuff like this. This is a really weird thing. I have Buffy the Vampire Slayer books. The 3 first ones. I didn't know this existed until I was like 12 and we were at this like obscure secondhand bookshop somewhere in Denmark or something. Denmark or Germany, I can't remember. And I found this one. I was like, oh, you know, I watched like 3 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I honestly think this will be so much fun. So much fun. Like, you know, like the Halloween weekend or something, just like, I don't know. This is sci-fi. So I've been trying to get into sci-fi a lot more because I find space so interesting. I love space. This is 2312 by Kim Stanley Robinson. By the way, I didn't say that. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is not written by the same person. It's written by 3 different people. Like each book, because it's 3 in 1, each book has its own author. Anyway, I have heard that it's lesbians in space. It's written very, very interestingly though. Every other chapter is like a new, like obscure list or extract or something else. And I think it switches perspective each, like, story chapter. The last book on this shelf is The Little Drummer Girl by John Le Carré. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. It's a thriller. It's about an English actress suddenly becoming a spy and fulfilling some, you know, missions and stuff. That's that shelf. Shall we move on? This is also a miscellaneous shelf. It used to be like YA. The first one is the first book in the Carrie Diaries series by Candace Bushnell. Yeah, this was written after Sex and the City was produced. It's about Carrie Bradshaw before she moves to New York City, so when she's in high school. This, I am actually looking forward to this so much. I've been saving this for like a beach day or something, because it just feels so silly to me. It feels so like, ew. The next book here is Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. I love this cover, by the way. It's about a family growing up, I think. It's a dazzling portrait of one extraordinary marriage over the course of 24 years and 2 perspectives. So yeah. The next one is also a Norwegian book that I have not read, called Hvite jenter kan ikke synge blues by Martine Johansen. I think this is about a girl traveling, well, from Norway, traveling around Europe. She's a musician and she's trying to sell her music and she lives off that, and then she just travels through Europe. I also have Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I got this from a friend because she had 2 copies and didn't need the small paperback one. I also have Scythe by Neil Schusterman. I've heard so many good things about this book and I think I'm really gonna like it. It's been on my immediate interest. Why isn't that there then? Let's move it. Anyway, I'll move that one because it doesn't belong here. I also have The Power by Naomi Alderman. This is a really interesting book. It's written like a nonfiction, almost a little bit like World War Z, but not in interview form, but in like Wikipedia pages and interviews and diary entries. Suddenly women in this world grow this power, mostly women grow this power to electrocute people through touch. So the power imbalance between the genders become extremely. But then it's women on top, of course, because they can kill you by touching you. We also have The Circle by Dave Eggers. This is a recent movie that has come out with Emma Watson as the main character. This is about like the internet and an internet company called The Circle that sort of takes over the whole world and everybody's on it. Everybody is inside the interface and stuff, and it's corrupt. Ooh. I also have Three Dark Crowns right here by Kendra Blake. Kendra? Kendra. Kendari. Kendari Blake. Kendari. Three Dark Crowns. Three sisters they're princesses. They all have one power each, and they're gonna fight to the death to become queen. We also at the bottom here have Anna Dressed in Blood, also by Kendra Blake. I didn't even know that. This is about a boy who falls in love with a ghost. Falling in love with a ghost. Well, let's move on, shall we? Whoa, I almost fell. This shelf is for like plays or poetry or like anthologies or texts, essays. The first one here is called Menneskemøter. I don't think this is published. Published. The Northern Girl. It's an anthology. There are like poems in here. Just like short stories and essays and stuff like that. People who have won like writing competitions and stuff. We also have The Sun and Her Flowers, and also Milk and Honey by Ruby Kaur. As you can see, like I have noted down a lot more of Milk and Honey than I have of The Sun and Her Flowers, and it's because I read this when I was like 15 and this when I was like 19. The more not critical, but I definitely don't inhale everything as I used to. I don't find everything profound the way I did when I was 15 and didn't know anything, you know? The next book is a collection of poems by Bertolt Brecht. It's called Landskap i Exil. I also have Sea of Strangers, poetry and prose by Lang Leave. I find myself wanting to make stuff, reading stuff like this. I do also have Hamlet in Norwegian. The last book I have on this shelf is Tales from Shakespeare by Charles and Mary Lamb, and it's basically, instead of it being the plays, it's each play written out like a story. Let's move on. This is a shelf dedicated to series. I have here a Hunger Games Mockingjay pin. At the top here I have the series that I'm currently reading, rereading. So it's Lies and then Plague in the Gone series by Michael Grant. It's number 3 and number 4 in a 6 book series. I also have right here, I have The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Like, it's not floppy at all. What kind of flop is this? This is no flop. No flop at all. Lord of the Rings, all 3 books, very floppy, so it's nice. I feel like this is a nice book to travel with because it's so big. I haven't read Lord of the Rings, kill me. The next series is the crown jewel of this collection, let's be honest. It's all of the Game of Thrones books by George R.R. Martin. This is so gorgeous. Yeah, it's HarperCollins, the Harper Voyager edition. A Clash of Kings looks like this. Gorgeous. Kidding me? And then you have A Storm of Swords, Steel and Snow that looks like this. Oh my god. And then you have the second A Storm of Swords, Blood and Gold. We also have A Feast of Crows, which looks like this. I think this may be one of my favorite of the whole covers, like just because of the aesthetic is really nice. And then we have A Dance with Dragons, the first one, which is Dreams and Dust, which looks like this. Has some, you know, houses and desert and dirt. And then the last, A Dance with Dragons After the Feast, is just ice and winter. Probably because by this book, winter has come. It's not just coming. I'm gonna fly through it just like I did with Game of Thrones. I read Game of Thrones last November or December, I can't quite remember. I think we should move on. This is my nonfiction shelf. It is divided into categories. So here, these are like memoirs and stuff that I really enjoy. You have Art, Sex, Music by Cosi Fanny Tutti. It's about an artist, Cosi Fanny Tutti. We also have A Walk Through Walls by Marina Abramovic, which is my favorite performance artist of all time. She's absolutely incredible. But she's done stuff like this. She walked the Great Wall of China. She's a performance artist and an activist. She's all about how far you can push the body, where your limits are, both mentally and physically. I also have M Train by Patti Smith. This is a book that I want to read immediately, because I think I'm gonna really enjoy it. Yep. Just a little memoir that she's written. How to Write an Autobiographical Novel by Alexander Chi. Essays. I have recently read this, and it's gonna probably end up in a wrap-up somewhere. We have the Small Great Ideas, but I have two of these. I've read this one, and I've also basically read this one, so I haven't read these ones. It's Decline of the English Murder by George Orwell, and also The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction by Walter Benjamin. What I have read is Writings from Zen Masters with that's no author, that's just, a collection of things. It's something that you need to sort of revisit often enough for it to sort of sink in. I've also read Books versus Cigarettes by George Orwell. It's all about reading and how reading falls in and out, and how it is to be a book critic. The next one is Who Said What by Helene Uri. It's about language and how things evolve into different things. Why different words have different connotations, and the history behind certain things, and why we use, and how language controls us and how we use language. Yeah, I also have Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. It's all about FBI in the 70s and how profiling became a thing. How they started using psychology to catch serial killers and bad people. We also have The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert and Unnatural History, because this is basically about the extinction we're in now, and it's about how there has been multiple extinction periods. There has been 5, and we're in the 6th now. The 6th is not a natural one. This is when you sort of move into the art part of my bookshelf, with this being the first one. This is an amazing book. It's by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's called Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Creative life, just reflections around should you profit off of your creativity, what to expect, what not to expect, how to sort of put your fear in another sphere than yourself so that you won't be hindered by your fear. We also have Shakespeare Graphic Guide, a very nice introduction to what Shakespeare is and who he was and what he wrote. But it's more about his impact on the world around him and impact on our world now. The next one is another autobiography. This is My Life in Art by Konstantin Stanislavski. It's basically about the theater maker Stanislavski. If you are into acting or theater at all, you will know who this is. This is basically the father of modern acting. He's basically the reason why we're not just standing on stages now, proclaiming things, being in big costumes, having no understanding of inner life and inner works of the character. So this is about how he grew up, what place he was in, a lot of the plays he directed, so it's very interesting. Yeah, that's that shelf. And now we only have one left, so I think we should just hop right into it. This is where I keep all my acting books. Mostly, this is most of my books, but I have 5 in England. Here I have the three books in Stanislavski, 3 of his acting journals. I also have this very silly book that I got, I can't even remember when, but it's Body Language, How to Know What's Really Being Said. I also have like this book, which is just a summary of different techniques in this. It all looks like this, and it's just like introductions, how it came to be, some references, what it is all about. Yeah, I like having these to look back on and read. I do also have The Power of the Actor, the Chubbuck technique, a 12-step acting technique that will take you from script to a living, breathing, dynamic character. What was I saying? Yeah, this is, I think, a lot of it is for film? I don't know though. And then the last one back here is just some classic and modern texts and theater theory. Yeah, that's all. So yeah, that's the whole tour of my shelves. It's been really nice. Yeah, thank you for joining me on this. It's very nice. I appreciate everything. Thank you so much. Okay. Goodbye.